About 2,000 years ago, there lived a perfect man who never did anything wrong. He even worked miracles. He turned water into wine, healed diseases, and raised people from the dead. Now, although this man did nothing wrong, there was a group of people that hated him so much they even killed him. Today you will hear the story of this perfect man's final hours. It's not just a story, but a history lesson out of the most accurate history book on possibly the most important event ever recorded in history: the death, burial, and resurrection of God's Son, Jesus Christ. So today, I present to you the gospel straight out of God's mouth. Matthew 27:11 through Matthew 28, without any fluff, added words, or commentary. The gospel. Now Jesus stood before the governor. "Are you the king of the Jews?" the governor asked him. Jesus answered, "You have said it." And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he didn't answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Can't you hear how much they're testifying against you?" But he didn't answer them on even one charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. At the festival, the governor's custom was to release to the crowd a prisoner that they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas, so when the people gathered together, Pilate asked them, "Who is it you want me to release for you, Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" For he knew they had handed him over because of envy. While he was sitting on the judge's bench, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for today I have suffered greatly in a dream because of him." The chief priests and elders, however, persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to execute Jesus. So then Pilate asked them, "Who is it you want me to release for you?" "Barabbas," they answered. Then he said, "What should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" "Crucify him," they answered. Then he said, "Why? What has he done wrong?" But they kept shouting, "Crucify him," all the more. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that a riot was starting instead, he took some water, washed his hands in front of the crowd, and said, "I'm innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." The people answered, "His blood be on us and our children." So he released Barabbas to them. But after having Jesus flogged, he handed him over to be crucified. The governor's soldiers took Jesus into headquarters and gathered the entire company around him. They stripped him and dressed him in a scarlet military robe. They twisted together a crown of thorns, put it on his head, and placed a reed in his right hand. And then they knelt down before him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews!" And then they spat on him, took his reed, and kept hitting him on the head. When they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, put his clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they found a Cyrenian man named Simon, and they forced this man to carry his cross. When they came to a place called Golgotha, which means skull place, they gave Jesus wine mixed with gall to drink, but when he tasted it, he wouldn't drink it. After crucifying him, they divided his clothes by casting lots. And then they sat down and were guarding him there. Above him they put a charge against him in writing, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." And then 2 criminals were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who were passing by were yelling insults, shaking their heads, and saying, "The one who would demolish the sanctuary in 3 days, save yourself! If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross!" In the same way, the chief priests and elders mocked him, saying he saved others. But he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now, and we will believe in him. He has put his trust in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, I am the Son of God. In the same way, the criminals who were crucified with him kept taunting him. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over the whole land. About 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lima sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing there heard this, they said, He's calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran, got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, fixed it on a reed, and offered him a drink. But the rest of them said, Let's see if Elijah comes to save him. Jesus shouted again with a loud voice, and gave up his spirit. Suddenly the curtain of the sanctuary was split in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the tombs were also opened, and many of the bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And they left the tombs after his resurrection, entered the holy city, and appeared to many. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they said, This man really was God's Son. Many women who had followed Jesus from Galilee and ministered to him there were looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jesus, and the mother of Zebedee's sons. When it was evening, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph came, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. He approached Pilate and asked for Jesus' body, so Pilate ordered that it be released. Then Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean fine linen, and placed it in his new tomb, which he had cut from the rock. He left after rolling a great stone in front of the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were seated there facing the tomb. The next day, which followed the preparation day, the chief priests and elders gathered before Pilate and said, Sir, we remember that while this deceiver was still alive, he said, After 3 days I will rise again. Therefore, give orders that the tomb be made secure until then. Otherwise, his disciples may come, steal the body, and say he has been raised from the dead. Then the last deception will be worse than the first. You have a guard of soldiers, Pilate told them. Go and make it as secure as you know how. So they made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to view the tomb. Suddenly there was a violent earthquake, because an angel of the Lord was descending from heaven. He rolled back the stone and was sitting on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his robe was as white as snow. The guards were so shaken from fear that they became like dead men. But the angel told the women, Do not be afraid, for I know you are here looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been resurrected just as he said. Come see the place where he lay. Then go tell his disciples he has been raised from the dead. In fact, he is going ahead of you to Galilee, and you will see him there. This I have told you. So departing the tomb with fear and great joy, they ran to tell the disciples the news. Just then, Jesus met them and said, Good morning. They fell to his feet and worshipped him. And then Jesus told the women, Do not be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there. As they were on their way, some of the soldiers came into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. After the priests had assembled with the elders and agreed on a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money and said, Say this. His disciples came during the night and stole him while we were sleeping. If this reaches the governor's ears, we will deal with him and keep you out of trouble. So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed, and this little story has been spread among Jewish people to this day. The 11 disciples traveled to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped, but some doubted. Then Jesus came near to them and said, All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with